So, as the story ended at Rivian with Diana's side, let's now explore Enoch's perspective before the incident of receiving the bracelet from Letitia. A moment ago, Enoch went to meet his siblings. El happily reassured him not to get nervous as he would do great in the exam. Seeing this, Enoch smiled and shared that she was the one who had been acting like she would be taking the exam. El responded that she had been anxious, which was why she had been behaving like that, and wished him all the best. Suddenly, El became sad. Seeing this, Enoch asked her the reason for her sadness. El shared that they hadn't been able to prepare a golden thread bracelet for Enoch. Enoch asked them not to dwell on it and just to cheer for him. As he walked forward, Letitia approached him. Enoch noticed that Letitia was holding something, so he wondered if it was the golden bracelet. Now, the scene shifts to the present where Enoch is very happy to have received the bracelet and feels that he will be lucky in the test. Afterward, he leaves for the test, and Letitia praises him, expressing confidence that Enoch will do well in the exam. Suddenly, Rivian appeared and asked her if she would mind having tea together in her room. Letitia responded with a hesitant yes, but from that sudden request, she became tense and wondered what was going on. In the room, they were having tea, but Letitia was feeling very awkward in that situation. Rivian asked if she didn't have anything to tell him. Letitia apologized, saying she didn't understand what he was talking about or what he meant by that. Rivian asked if she really didn't know and mentioned that she had sent Diana because she couldn't come herself, yet she had time to talk with another man. He also pointed out that they hadn't even broken off their engagement, so didn't she think it was wrong to be out in public with another man? Hearing the questions, Letitia was stunned and shouted at him to say something. But before she could continue, Rivian told her to get her act together and not to make him look bad too. Letitia was very sad and wasn't answering anything. Rivian again asked if he hadn't told her that if she had time for that, she should focus on awakening her powers instead. He then remembered the scene of Duke Enoch meeting with Letitia and was filled with anger due to jealousy seeing them together. He was so furious that he wanted to meet with Enoch soon to talk it over, as he dared to meet with his fiancée. Letitia asked Rivian to tell her how he awakened his power. Rivian asked if she had watched how he did it and if he had to explain. Letitia then shouted that he must know that he and she were different. Rivian responded in a very bad tone that it didn't mean she should sit around and do nothing. She again shouted and asked what he wanted her to do when her efforts weren't paying off. Rivian asked if she was expecting him to figure it out for her. Letitia furiously told him that she didn't know how much she had been trying. Suddenly, Rivian stood up and said he didn't want to talk to her anymore because being with her was so exhausting. He then asked Letitia to leave the room, and after she did, she slammed the door from outside. Rivian was tense and didn't know what to do, while Letitia felt sad and wondered when things had become like that. She also felt the need for some fresh air. In the next scene, Letitia was walking when she met Diana on the path. Diana shared with Letitia that she was still the same, as she kept embarrassing those around her. She also asked Letitia to look at herself and not to tell her that she was roaming around like that. Letitia asked what was wrong with the way she looked. Diana then took her hand towards Letitia's head to take off the hair ribbon and asked if she was serious. Where did she find something so cheap? But before Diana could reach Letitia slapped at her hand to move it away and asked Diana not to touch her ribbon. Diana became furious at Letitia's act of slapping her hand and asked what. Letitia again told her not to come close to her ribbon. Diana then furiously removed the ribbon by pulling it and told Letitia not to go around making a fool of herself. Seeing this, Diana was shocked, as the ribbon was a precious gift given to her by her maid as a repayment gift. She felt sad to see the ribbon lying on the ground. Diana apologized, acknowledging that it was a mistake. Letitia tried to shout, but before she could, Diana asked what, as she had already told her that it was a mistake. Letitia got furious and grabbed Diana's hair from behind, starting to pull it. Diana asked Letitia to leave her hair, but Letitia demanded that Diana apologize first before she would let go. Diana responded that she would never apologize. Letitia again asked her to say sorry. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Marquess Leroy arrived and asked what all the fuss was about. Diana shared that Letitia suddenly grabbed her hair. Letitia also mentioned that Diana was the first to pull her hair ribbon. However, Marquess Leroy shouted at Letitia, saying she should know better than to fight with her younger sister, and asked if she couldn't do anything right. Diana then went to Marquess Leroy and acted as if she was sad, starting to sniffle. Marquess Leroy tried to console Diana. In the next scene, Letitia was on her way back when she met Rivian. Rivian, upon seeing her, asked what had happened to her. Letitia told him that it's nothing. Rivian asked again, and Letitia shouted that she had already said it was nothing. Rivian asked her once more to tell him what it was all about. Letitia told Rivian that Diana started it all by mocking her. Rivian asked what Diana said to her. Letitia then told Rivian that Diana said she was embarrassing and yanked at her ribbon, mentioning that it was a precious ribbon that Mary gave her. Rivian got shocked and asked if all the fuss was over a mere ribbon. Hearing this, Letitia furiously asked what he meant by that. Rivian replied that he would buy her as many ribbons as she wanted, so she should make up with Diana. Letitia furiously asked what he had just said. Seeing her so angry, he asked what. Letitia repeated that she asked him what he had just said. Rivian then asked what the big deal was, as it was just a hair ribbon. Letitia responded that to him, it might just be a cheap ribbon that he could buy whenever he wanted, but not for her, as he didn't know how precious a gift it was for her. Rivian then shared that this was the reason why he said he would buy as many as she wanted. Letitia asked if he thought it would make her happy. Rivian was confused and tense. Letitia then whirled back and told him that she didn't want him to do that. After Letitia left, Rivian was tense because he didn't intend to do it, but somehow it happened. Marquess Leroy came there and asked Rivian if he was going to leave. Rivian responded with a yes, explaining that it was too late, so it was best for him to head back. Marquess Leroy agreed and asked him to meet soon. Rivian greeted him back before departing. On the way back to his home, Rivian wondered why Marquess Leroy had said that he would see him soon when there were talks of breaking off the engagement. He also pondered that Letitia needed to awaken her power soon. He also remembered the past when Letitia asked him if he had considered practicing swordsmanship or archery. After that conversation, he somehow felt a strange kind of energy within himself and was shocked by the incident. Now, in the present, he was thinking about everything and pondering over it a lot. On the other hand, Diana was extremely upset with Letitia for humiliating her in front of Rivian, finding it completely unacceptable. Meanwhile, in Letitia's room, Mary became concerned upon seeing Letitia in that state and asked her what had happened. Letitia responded that the incident was caused by Diana. Mary, sensing Letitia's sadness, approached her and gently asked about the incident. Letitia sadly exclaimed that it was Diana who had upset her. Observing Letitia's distress, Mary moved closer and assured her that she would always support her, no matter what. She encouraged Letitia to confide in her whenever she felt distressed, promising to be there to offer comfort and support. Even if she couldn't solve everything, she could at least hold her hand and provide comfort. Letitia thanked Mary for her kindness. Mary then suggested that Letitia might feel better if she spent some time with a teacher in the garden to lift her mood. Letitia agreed and went out to the garden. Seeing Letitia in the garden, the maids began to whisper among themselves, wondering why Lady Letitia kept coming out when she should stay in her room. They expressed anxiety about seeing Letitia outside like that. Suddenly, they heard Diana's voice instructing them to bear with it a little longer, as soon they wouldn't have to worry about Letitia anymore. One of the maids asked if Diana was telling the truth. Diana replied with a firm yes and asked them to trust her until then. The maids became happy and remarked that Diana was the only one they could rely on, praising her generosity. In the next scene, Diana went to her father's room. Upon seeing her, Marquess Leroy asked about her health. Diana replied that she was feeling much better than before. Marquess Leroy asked if she had applied medicine. Diana responded affirmatively, but added that she had something else to discuss with him. Seeing her serious expression, Marquess Leroy encouraged her to speak freely about whatever was on her mind. Suddenly, Marquess Leroy noticed Diana's hand covered in bandages, and concerned, he asked if someone had hurt her. Diana then proceeded to narrate her own embellished story to Marquess Leroy. The scene then shifted to the garden, where Letitia was having a great time and feeling very happy surrounded by flowers. She was thoroughly enjoying the beauty of nature. However, as she turned to go back inside, she suddenly became tense upon seeing her father and sister standing in her path. Seeing him so angry, Letitia asked for the reason. Marquess Leroy questioned what she was thinking, wandering off when she had the ability to bring misfortune. Shocked, Letitia asked him to explain what he meant. Marquess Leroy also shouted that the worst thing was that she was still associating with the people of the Achilles family. He asked if he hadn't warned her to stay away from them. Letitia felt sad and puzzled, not understanding why her father was suddenly shouting at her out of nowhere. Then Marquess Leroy told Letitia that her actions had led to her sister getting hurt and asked Letitia to look at Diana's wrist. Tensely, Letitia asked Diana what had happened to her wrist. But suddenly, Marquess Leroy shouted at Letitia, accusing her of being intent on ruining their family with her bad luck. It was the moment when Letitia received the biggest shock of her life. Her own father, Marquess Leroy, told her to never look or come near the Leroy house again. Leroy declared that he was expelling Letitia from being his daughter and instructed her to conduct herself in a manner that would prevent any further misfortune from befalling the Leroy house. Letitia was shocked and tried to say something, but Marquess Leroy and Diana didn't hear her and left the place. Letitia was left wondering whether her father was truly abandoning her. After the incident, Letitia went to Diana's room to ask if her wrist was okay. Diana clarified if she was asking about her hand and then showed her hand, which was now free of bandages. Seeing this, Letitia was surprised and asked why Diana had removed the bandage. Diana responded that she was fine and hadn't actually been hurt. The scene then goes back to the moment when Marquess Leroy and Diana were having their conversation. Marquess Leroy was surprised and asked Diana if it was true that Letitia had the power to bring misfortune. Diana confirmed with a yes and suggested he confirm it with the coachman. Marquess Leroy then asked if Diana had been hurt because of Letitia. Diana replied with a no, explaining that she had tripped. She admitted she hadn't wanted to tell him, but she revealed that the previous day, Letitia had wished for her to get hurt. The scene returned to the present, where Diana was laughing hysterically and feeling very happy, thinking it was a relief to be rid of her annoying sister. Her laughter echoed through the room as she found humor in the situation. And thus, Letitia was kicked out from her own house. Now, Letitia found herself on the road, feeling lost and unsure of what to do next. With nowhere to go and only a handkerchief left in her possession, she began to cry. In her distress, she remembered the moment when she had received that handkerchief from Duke Enoch. Remembering Enoch's words about the handkerchief being his lucky charm, Letitia wondered if there truly was such a thing as good luck. Feeling desperate, and with nowhere else to turn, she decided to pray to God for help. With tears in her eyes, she whispered a prayer, pleading for guidance and assistance, as she had no idea what to do next. As the rain began to pour down, Letitia realized she needed to get up before she got completely soaked. However, she found herself unable to muster the strength to rise from the ground. In that moment of vulnerability, she couldn't help but wonder if her power truly was to bring bad luck and misfortune upon herself. Suddenly, to Letitia's surprise, Duke Enoch appeared on the path. Seeing Letitia lying on the road in the midst of the heavy rain, Enoch grew concerned and wondered why she was there in such a state. Enoch approached Letitia, who had fallen to the ground, and offered his hand to help her up and stand on her own. Letitia thanked Enoch for his assistance. Concerned, Enoch noticed her tears and asked if something had happened. Letitia responded with a no, indicating that nothing had happened. Enoch then remarked that it was raining heavily and getting dark, so he offered to take her to the Leroy house safely. Hearing this, Letitia spoke in a low tone, expressing that she couldn't go back to the Leroy house as she had been expelled. Enoch, shocked by the revelation, struggled to believe it, so he asked again if he had heard correctly. Letitia confirmed that she had nowhere else to go. She couldn't help but think that Enoch must be judging her as pathetic. Enoch paused for a moment, then suggested to Letitia that if she was okay with it, she could come to his house. Surprised by the offer, Letitia asked Enoch to confirm if he meant it. Enoch assured her that he genuinely wanted to help her rest comfortably for at least one day. Letitia's face lit up with happiness as she asked if it was truly okay for her to go. Enoch nodded in affirmation, mentioning that even Ian and El would be delighted to see her. With Enoch's reassurance, Letitia agreed to go to his house. The scene shifted to Achilles' house, where Enoch was showing Letitia to her room. He kindly suggested that she rest, considering she must be tired. Letitia, feeling grateful, apologized for inconveniencing him at such a late hour and thanked him for his kindness. Enoch reassured Letitia, telling her that if she had nowhere else to go, she could stay at his house for the time being. Letitia, not fully understanding his meaning, asked Enoch to clarify. Enoch explained that he meant she could stay at his house for as long as she needed. Letitia hesitated, asking if it wouldn't be an inconvenience to him. Enoch reassured her, saying it wouldn't be an inconvenience at all, and wished her a good night. Hearing this, Letitia felt a surge of happiness and returned the good night greeting. As she lay in bed, she couldn't help but think that Enoch was a truly good person. However, she also realized that she couldn't depend on him forever. She pondered over what she should do next. Meanwhile, at the Leroy mansion, Rivian raised his voice, demanding answers from Marquis Leroy. He questioned what Marquis Leroy meant by expelling Letitia and asked if it meant her name had been removed from the family register. Marquis Leroy explained that he had felt he had no other option. Rivian persisted, questioning how he could make such a decision and demanding to know Letitia's whereabouts. Marquis Leroy admitted he didn't know where Letitia was. Rivian, frustrated and angry, shouted at Marquis Leroy before storming out of the room. Marquis L apologized to Marquis Leroy on behalf of Rivian, acknowledging that he understood the situation, considering their close relationship like siblings. Marquis Leroy responded with understanding, saying it was no problem, as he could see that his own children didn't always follow his instructions either. Outside the house, Rivian felt a wave of sadness wash over him as he reminisced about his moments with Letitia. He thought about how he had planned to buy a ribbon for her, but her expulsion was unacceptable to him. Marquis Leroy inquired if Marquis L had spoken with Rivian. Marquis L responded, mentioning that he had discussed the topic of marriage with Diana and expressed his intention to broach the subject when the time was right. Marquis Leroy urged Marquis L to act quickly, expressing concern that Rivian might become even more rebellious. He mentioned that he would look forward to hearing the good news. Afterwards, Marquis Leroy pondered that things were not going very well. Suddenly, the carriage wheel broke, causing the carriage to come to a halt. Startled by the sudden jolt, Marquis Leroy asked the driver for the reason behind it. The driver explained that the wheel had broken, rendering the carriage immobile. Marquis Leroy felt tense, as the wheel had been fine just moments before. The scene shifted to Achilles' house, where Letitia and El were picking flowers from the garden. Meanwhile, Ian and Enoch were engaged in conversation about them. Ian remarked that he thought Letitia seemed happier than she had been the day before. Enoch agreed with Ian, expressing a sense of relief at seeing Letitia happier. Ian then inquired about the reason for her previous sadness, asking if something had happened to her. Enoch revealed that Letitia had been expelled from her family. Ian reacted with shock upon hearing the news. Enoch pondered the reason for Letitia's expulsion, wondering if it was because of her powers and if power held such importance. He then asked Ian to pretend he hadn't heard anything and to take good care of Letitia. Ian agreed, promising to do so, and Enoch thanked him for his willingness. On the other side, Letitia was grappling with the thought of not wanting to be a burden on them any longer. She resolved to make herself useful, so she began cooking, cleaning the house, and wiping the windows. Letitia did everything she could think of to contribute and be helpful. Seeing Letitia cleaning the doors, Enoch felt tense and approached her. He asked Letitia why she was doing such tasks, expressing that she didn't need to do that kind of work. He wondered if she felt uncomfortable staying at his place, leading to her feeling the need to overexert herself with chores. Letitia responded with a no, indicating that discomfort wasn't the reason. Before she could explain further, Enoch intervened, expressing his desire for her to rest comfortably and reassuring her that there was no need for her to strain herself. Letitia's expression softened, and she explained that she wanted to repay his kindness for allowing her to stay at his manor when she had nowhere else to go. She expressed gratitude for his continuous kindness towards her. Seeing Letitia feeling sad and expressing her generosity for wanting to repay him, Enoch began to wonder how much Letitia's heart had been broken, and if this was how she had always felt back at home. He approached her gently, telling her that she didn't need to say that she had been thrown out, emphasizing that she wasn't an object to be discarded, and he would never kick her out. Enoch encouraged her to make herself at home, assuring her that she was welcome to stay. Enoch also mentioned that he disliked relationships that felt dull and obligatory. He then inquired if Letitia understood his point. However, Letitia apologized, admitting that she didn't grasp his meaning and requested him to clarify. Enoch asked Letitia what she thought she would do next. Letitia responded that she didn't know. Enoch then instructed her to put the rag down as she didn't need to clean anymore. He pointed out that she hadn't even watered the flowers and suggested she make herself comfortable at home. Letitia responded with an okay as she understood and asked if she could water the flowers because she liked them very much. Hearing this, Enoch was surprised but allowed her to do so. She then made a cute face and asked about cleaning, suggesting that she should clean her own room by herself. Enoch felt tense hearing such childish requests from her, but he agreed nonetheless and told her that it was enough, as she didn't need to do more than that. Just that he only needed one thing from her. He wanted her to feel comfortable while she was at his home. Hearing this, Letitia felt happy and blushed. She thanked Enoch for always being so considerate toward her and happily remarked that she was lucky. Hearing this, Enoch also felt good and blushed, feeling shy. He then suggested to Letitia that they could join ELA in baking some tarts. Letitia responded with a yes, as it sounded like a good idea to her. So they both then went to ELL Indian. But when they reached there, they were surprised to see that ELA and Ian looked tense. Letitia asked what they were doing and why their faces looked sad, wondering if something was wrong with them. Ian and ELL asked Enoch and Letitia to look at the paper. When Letitia took it and read that Enoch had passed the Imperial Order entrance exam, she became happy. In her joy, ELA jumped and hugged Enoch to congratulate him. Letitia also held Enoch's hand and happily congratulated him for passing the exam. At that moment, Enoch blushed fully and felt happy. Suddenly, ELL heard some sounds and looked outside. After seeing, she told everyone that it looked like they had a visitor. So EL went to check, and Ian asked her to wait for him to go with her. Seeing the person, EL became tense. After returning inside, she told Enoch that they had a guest. Enoch asked who the guest was. Suddenly, Enoch saw that it was Lord Eek, also known as Rivian. The scene then shifted to some later time where Letitia and Rivian were sitting in front of each other. Enoch asked them to excuse him as he wanted them to talk in private. After he left, there was a lingering silence for some seconds. But Rivian spoke up and asked Letitia why she hadn't told him, as he had searched for her everywhere. Hearing this, Letitia tensely asked if he had come all the way to House Achilles just to say that. Rivian asked Letitia to go back, saying they would talk later. Letitia asked where she was supposed to go back to. Surprisingly, Rivian asked, "What?" Letitia clarified, asking where she was supposed to return. Rivian then asked if she was supposed to live at House Achilles. He also suggested that she come with him and stay at El Manor instead. Letitia directly responded with a no, stating that she would stay at House Achilles. Hearing this, Rivian was surprised and asked, "What?" Letitia responded firmly that it wasn't him who would decide where she would stay. Rivian then reminded her that he was her fiancé. Letitia reiterated her decision to stay at House Achilles. Rivian then stated that he believed their conversation was over. Outside the window, Ian asked why Rivian had come to their house. Enoch responded that Rivian must have come for Letitia, as officially, the Leroy and Eek families were engaged. Ian then asked what would happen if Letitia decided to go with Rivian. Enoch sadly responded that he wasn't sure about it. Suddenly, Rivian came without noticing him, and they both crossed each other's paths without saying a word. Seeing this, I asked if Rivian came without notice. Should he at least say sorry or thank you to him? Letitia also came there and apologized to them for causing trouble. Il told Letitia not to be sorry, reassuring her that it was okay because she hadn't done anything wrong. Il was about to ask about the talk Letitia had with Rivian, but before she could, Ian pulled her with him and suggested they go pick strawberries. Il shouted that they had already picked the strawberries and that she had something to ask Letitia, but Ian still pulled her away from the scene. Enoch asked Letitia if they should also go inside. Letitia then asked Enoch to wait for a moment as she had something to say, but she hesitated to say it. Seeing this, Enoch asked what she wanted to say. Letitia admitted that she knew she was being a nuisance to them, but she would like to stay at House Achilles for the time being. Hearing this, Enoch was surprised and then sadly admitted that he was afraid she was going to leave. Letitia happily responded with a firm no, saying she would never leave as she wanted to stay. Enoch also became happy and asked her to stay for as long as she wanted,
urging her to always feel comfortable.
Letitia mentioned that she might stay longer than he thought. Enoch responded that it wasn't a problem as they had plenty of rooms. Hearing this, she felt a little tense and wondered how a person could be so kind. So she repeated that she had indeed meant it, that she could stay at his house for a very long time. Enoch still responded with a yes, agreeing to whatever she wished. Letitia then, with a shy, blushing face, admitted that she might stay at his house forever. After saying it, Letitia was stunned by what she had said to Enoch and why. Hearing this, Enoch laughed and jokingly asked if it was supposed to be a threat. Letitia apologized, saying she didn't mean to say it. Enoch interrupted her and told her he didn't expect her to say something like that. Letitia reassured him that she didn't mean it in the way he was thinking. To her surprise, Enoch smiled and said he liked her threat and that he would give it special consideration. At that moment, she couldn't believe what was happening, so she apologized and asked Enoch if he was really serious. Enoch then asked if she had anything else she wished to tell him. Letitia responded with a timid no and felt shy and embarrassed about her behavior. She started running to go back inside, but to her surprise, she couldn't open the door. At that moment, Enoch came from behind and gently held her, instructing her to first turn the knob the other way. After she followed his guidance and got inside, she felt very happy, her heart beating fast once again. The scene then shifted to some time later, where Il told Letitia that she had no idea how nervous she was. Letitia apologized, and Il reiterated that she was very worried that Letitia would leave. Il then happily suggested they go to the place for a change. Letitia, upon hearing it, asked about the place. Il responded that they would go to the place they had met for the first time. The scene then shifted to the market at the dart game place. Upon reaching there, Il asked Letitia to try it together, but Letitia denied, stating she was very bad at those things. Il asked how could she be bad at a dart game and encouraged her to give it a try. Letitia agreed that she would give it only one try. She attempted, but failed to hit the center and tensely asked Il to look. As she had already mentioned, she was bad at it. However, ELL was happy as it was at least close to the center. Letitia then sadly mentioned that she wanted to win a sack of flour. ILL, surprised, asked why. Letitia explained that it was because both Ian and ELA were really happy last time when they won the sack of flour. At that moment, Ian and IL looked at each other and suddenly burst into laughter. Seeing this, Letitia got surprised and asked why they were laughing. Ian then remarked that it would be nice if they won a sack of flour, but ultimately it didn't matter. Letitia apologized, admitting she didn't understand what Ian meant. Ian explained that they were having fun together, and that's what mattered most to them. Hearing this, Letitia felt happy and realized that Ian was right. Winning the flour wasn't important, but having fun together was. ELA and then pondered where they should go next. As they moved further, Letitia saw a person and wondered if it was Emil. The scene then shifted to Achilles' house, where Enoch was reading a letter from the custodian. who was seeking Enoch's opinion on closing the pink diamond mining business. Reading it, Enoch went into a flashback where he was telling Ian that they would get rich if they found the pink diamond in the mine. However, as a result, they discovered that there were impurities in the gemstone, meaning the whole mine was a useless lump of impurities, and they couldn't sell something like that. The scene then returns to the present, where Enoch was thinking that closing the business was the right decision, and perhaps it was best to sell it off as soon as possible. Suddenly, he saw a carriage coming towards their house, and he wondered who was in the carriage. The carriage stopped, and Rivian emerged from it. Seeing Rivian, Enoch was shocked and mentioned that Lady Letitia wasn't present at the moment. However, Rivian clarified that he didn't come to meet Letitia. This time, he came to meet Enoch. Enoch understood, so he asked Rivian to follow him. As they went inside the house, Rivian wondered how humble House Achilles was, why Letitia wanted to stay there, and whether they were providing proper meals to Letitia or not. In the room, they both had tea together. Rivian then told Enoch that he had a favor to ask from him, which was to persuade Letitia. Enoch asked why he needed to persuade Letitia. Rivian responded that Letitia shouldn't be staying at House Achilles. Rivian furiously declared that he wouldn't let Letitia stay at a place like that. Enoch responded that he believed Rivian had come to the wrong person. Rivian asked Enoch what he meant by that. Enoch shared that Rivian should be persuading Lady Letitia directly and not him. Rivian shouted at Enoch, wanting to say something, but Enoch interrupted and told him that there was no use talking to him as there was nothing he could do. Rivian then asked why Enoch was keeping Letitia by force. Hearing this, Enoch became furious, but still calmly asked whether Rivian really thought he was keeping her at his house against her will. Enoch clarified that it was solely Lady Letitia's decision to stay at House Achilles, and nobody forced it upon her. Rivian shouted that Letitia was too kind to leave something she cared about. Enoch responded that it was also up to Letitia, and it was Rivian who was pressuring Letitia, not him. Hearing this, Rivian became furious and demanded to know what the hell Enoch was talking about. Enoch instructed Rivian to leave as he had nothing more to say. Rivian fell silent, then apologized to Enoch for his discourtesy and promptly left his house. The scene shifted back to the fair where Letitia spotted Emil. She called out to him, and Emil turned around, recognizing Letitia. Memories flooded back to him from their childhood, recalling how their family had been very poor. Emil remembered Letitia as always being mature and respectable, never complaining as she looked after her younger siblings and their ill mother. For Emil, those memories held less significance now. He believed Letitia lagged behind in power compared to Irene, the youngest sibling, who he thought was causing them harm with her bad luck. He had also heard rumors that Letitia was associating with the Achilles family, and it turned out the rumors were true. Emil expressed that he initially thought it was a lie when he heard that Letitia was staying at the Achilles Manor, but now it seemed to be true. Letitia confirmed this with a yes, acknowledging that she was indeed staying with the Achilles family. Emil then shared that Letitia knew how much their father hated the Achilles household. Hearing this, ELA got furious and demanded to know how Emil could say such things in front of them. Letitia responded to Emil, telling him that he didn't need to worry about it anymore. Emil was shocked to hear this. Letitia explained that there was no reason for them to show concern for each other. Hearing this, Emil was stunned and responded that Letitia was right. He should mind his own business. With a curt goodbye, he moved further away from her. Though Letitia felt deeply saddened in reality, she realized that it was better for her to stay alone without her family. Suddenly, to her surprise, Ile jumped and hugged Letitia tightly. Letitia, taken aback, asked El what was happening. Ele responded by assuring Letitia that they would treat her even better, so she didn't need to feel hurt. Letitia replied that she wasn't hurt and that she was fine. They both hugged each other tightly, finding solace in each other's embrace. On the other side, in the Leroy mansion, Diana got hurt after missing her step and injuring herself. Xavier asked if she was all right, to which Diana responded with a no, suspecting that she had sprained her wrist. Xavier told her that she needed to be more careful if she didn't want to hurt her wrist again. Diana asked what he meant by that. Xavier responded that she had mentioned she got hurt because of Letitia. Diana became irritated and snapped back, saying she was fine now and that he could leave. But deep down, Diana was feeling tense and pondering the unsettling coincidence. Her mother had just broken one of her favorite teacups, and then Diana herself had suddenly fallen over and hurt her hand for real. Diana began to wonder if there was truly a streak of bad luck in the Leroy household, as the thought was starting to get on her nerves. The scene shifted to the Achilles household, where Yelwei was busy doing something in the garden. Letitia approached her and asked what she was drawing. Startled by the sudden question and Letitia's arrival, Iliel became scared. Letitia apologized, expressing that she hadn't meant to frighten her. Aiel reassured her, saying it was okay and that she was fine. Letitia then asked tensely if she had disturbed her. Aiel responded with a no and then asked if Letitia had come alone. Letitia responded with a yes and asked Aiel what she was drawing. Aiel then picked up her drawing and warned Letitia that she was only showing it to her and she was not allowed to tell Enoch about it. Letitia laughed and assured Aiel that she wouldn't tell Enoch. Then Letitia asked Aiel if she had drawn all the drawings by herself. Aiel responded with a yes and asked Letitia what she was thinking about it. Letitia responded that the drawings were really good and pretty cute. Aiel asked if she was telling the truth. Letitia replied with a yes and expressed her interest in seeing the accessories Aiel made in real life. Letitia looked closely at one of the drawings and commented that she thought it looked like a gold bracelet. Aiel responded, explaining that she made that drawing because she had failed to obtain a bracelet made of gold thread for Enoch's entrance exam. Aiel explained that she had done everything she could to buy the bracelet, but she still couldn't manage it. So she felt relieved when she heard that Letitia had given him a bracelet. Aiel thanked Lady Letitia for her kindness, seeing Aiel's gratitude. Letitia couldn't help but feel a little sad. Suddenly, Letitia had a thought and asked Aiel why she hadn't tried making accessories like a gold thread bracelet herself. Aiel became confused and puzzled by the term making accessories. Letitia clarified with a yes and explained that, for example, it could be a bracelet that makes wishes come true. Aiel apologized, saying that the bracelets she drew didn't grant any wishes. Letitia reassured her, saying that even if they didn't grant wishes, she could give the bracelets meaning. Despite Letitia's encouragement, Aiel still hesitated. Letitia shared her thoughts, expressing that she believed Aiel knew more than her because passing a test and having a wish come true were things everyone could hope for, regardless of their status. Touched by Letitia's words, Aiel began to ponder the significance of her creations. Aiel, now ready and filled with happiness, agreed with Letitia, acknowledging that everyone could hope to pass a test and make a wish. She then shared her hope that the pictures of accessories could give somebody courage, just like Letitia had done for her. Letitia smiled and then asked why Aiel was keeping it a secret from Enoch. Aiel responded that she didn't think Enoch would be happy about it. She also explained that they were in debt because of the business their father had started. So Aiel thought that Enoch wouldn't be happy to hear that she also wanted to start the business. Letitia responded understandingly, but deep down, she believed that Enoch would happily support Lady Aiel in her endeavors. Suddenly, Enoch appeared and asked them what they were doing. Both Letitia and Aiel were stunned, and Aiel became tense, fearing that Enoch would see her drawings. Seeing Aiel so surprised, Enoch asked her what had happened and why she was so startled, likening her reaction to seeing a ghost. Aiel hesitated to say anything to Enoch. However, Letitia gently put a hand on her shoulder and whispered in her ear that everything would be fine, encouraging her to speak up. Aiel, believing in Letitia's support, took a deep breath and then showed the drawings to Enoch. She explained that she had drawn all the images herself and expressed her desire to start an accessory business using those drawings. Hearing this, Enoch remained silent, deep in thought. Aiel, sensing his hesitation, reiterated that she knew he might not be happy to hear her plans, but assured him that she was willing to take full responsibility for her actions. She promised that she would not cause any harm to their family and wouldn't end up in debt like their father. Enoch then smiled and told Hillel that he didn't think she was irresponsible at all. He gently patted her head and encouraged her to pursue her dreams, advising her not to overwork herself in the process. Hillel was surprised by Enoch's supportive reaction and felt extremely happy. Letitia was also looking happy. Hillel then asked if he would do her a favor. The scene then shifted to later sometime where Letitia and Hillel were in the market. Letitia expressed her relief, stating that she was glad the conversation had gone well with Serena. Hillel responded that she agreed and owed it all to Letitia. Letitia then shared that she never knew Hillel had such a great idea. Hillel happily responded that she had thought Enoch wouldn't allow her to use pink diamonds with impurities. Letitia told Hillel that it was a great idea and that now all Hillel had to do was find a craftsman to make the accessories. Hillel expressed her gratitude, saying Letitia didn't need to come with her. But Letitia insisted, saying she wanted to come. Hillel went to many craftsmen to show her drawings and talk about her idea. But one by one, everyone rejected her. After being rejected 5 times already, Hillel felt sad and discouraged. Letitia comforted Hillel, encouraging her to keep searching, as she was confident they would eventually find a craftsman who would be better than all of them. Hillel responded that she hoped so. However, due to their conversation, Hillel didn't see a man in the road and accidentally bumped into him. Letitia quickly asked Hillel if she was okay. The man also apologized and asked if she was injured. As Hillel stood up, she first went to pick up her drawings, and it became apparent that both of them had the same envelope. The man then started to move forward, apologizing again as he was in too much of a rush to see where he was going. Hillel responded with a smile, saying it was all right, but asked him to be more careful next time. After the man left, Letitia asked if Hillel was hurt. Hillel responded with a no, saying she was fine. She then suggested they go back home. Letitia was shocked and asked why, as they hadn't found a craftsman yet. Hillel explained that they could continue searching another day. Letitia tried to stop Hillel again, but Hillel insisted that if they didn't go home, Enoch would worry about them. So they should go home first, and they could continue their search for a craftsman another time. Letitia agreed with Hillel's reasoning, and they headed home together. The scene then shifted some time later to the Achilles house. Seeing them back, Enoch welcomed them and asked how their day was. Hillel responded that their day was fine, but she wasn't able to find a craftsman. Ian remarked that she didn't look disappointed at all. Hillel responded with a yes, explaining that she wasn't disappointed. Instead, she was even more determined to find a craftsman. Enoch chimed in happily, saying that he knew, as Hillel was none other than his sister. Letitia, seeing them, was very happy and thought to herself how cute they all were. Hillel then asked Letitia why she was standing and told her to sit down. Letitia felt a bit tense, realizing that the only seat left was next to Sir Enoch. Hillel asked again, so Letitia reluctantly sat beside Enoch, but she was really blushing and feeling very awkward sitting next to him. Enoch then kindly asked Hillel and Letitia not to stay out too late as he was worried about them. Enoch then handed a cup of tea to Letitia. Letitia, seeing it, wondered if Enoch was worrying about her. She accepted the tea, thanked Enoch, and couldn't help but admire what a good and warm-hearted person he was. Ian then mentioned that he was reminded of something and asked Enoch if the Imperial Night installation was taking place soon. Hillel also agreed with Ian and asked if Enoch wasn't nervous about it. Enoch asked why he should be nervous. Ian then asked Lady Letitia if she was coming with them. Letitia asked if she was allowed to come with them. Enoch responded with a yes, as she was obviously allowed. Letitia responded that if she was allowed, then she would definitely be there to congratulate him. However, deep down, she felt tense, worrying about the possibility of meeting Rivian there. Ian then asked Hillel if the designs in the envelope were hers and if he could take a look at them. Hillel responded with a yes, giving Ian permission to go ahead. However, when Ian opened the envelope, he found a contract inside. He mentioned that there was a contract, which made Il tense, and she asked what was going on. Letitia also felt tense and asked what it was about. Ela, seeing the papers, realized that they weren't her drawings. She then remembered the bump with the man and wondered if the papers got switched when she bumped into him. The scene then shifted to the man who went to a certain place. He handed the envelope to his boss. When the boss opened the envelope, he was shocked and asked the man what he had given him. The man didn't understand, asked his boss to clarify. The boss then showed him the drawings and asked what it was. Suddenly, the man remembered the bump he had with El. He apologized, explaining that on his way there, he had bumped into a girl, and he was certain that they had switched their envelopes during the collision. The boss shouted at him to go and find it quickly. The man responded with an okay and hurried off to find El. Meanwhile, the boss looked at the drawings and thought that the design for the wish bracelet was pretty good. He believed it just needed some polishing, but he was confident that the bracelet would sell quickly. So he ran towards the man to ask him to wait. The boss asked his employee to give the message to the owner of the envelope whenever he would find them, as he had a wish to meet with them. El sadly told everyone that she had bumped into someone while she was outside, realizing her envelope must have been switched with his. Ian shared that it was too late, so they would go and find it the next day. El also agreed, and Ian then asked her to go back to their rooms. After they both went, Enoch asked Letitia if they should also go to their rooms. Letitia then wanted to say something, so she called Enoch. Enoch asked if something was wrong with her. Letitia responded with a no, as nothing was wrong, but she wondered whether Rivian also came to the manor again while they were both in the market. Enoch noticed and remarked that she was calling Rivian by his name, which meant they must be very close. Letitia explained that their families had been close since they were young, so naturally, they were also close. She then grew sad, thinking about Rivian, as his behavior had changed drastically recently. She began to wonder when Rivian had started acting so strangely. Seeing her so sad, Enoch grew tense, so he lied and said that Rivian didn't come. Letitia responded that she was glad to hear it. Enoch then mentioned that there was something he wanted to tell her. Letitia apologized, saying she didn't understand what he wanted to say. Enoch then said that if somebody hurt her, she shouldn't take it for granted or force herself to hold back, as nobody deserves to feel hurt. Letitia felt so good hearing this and thanked Enoch for his words. She then shared with Enoch that she was no longer a lady of House Leroy, so he could address her comfortably. Hearing the word comfortably, Enoch started wondering how he should address her in a relaxed manner. Letitia asked Enoch to call her by her name. She then grew tense, wondering whether Sir Enoch would indeed call her by her name or not. Suddenly, to her surprise, Enoch called her by her name, Letitia, and asked if that was what he should call her. Letitia happily responded with a yes. Enoch then told her that he also wanted her to address him comfortably as well. Hearing this, she was stunned and asked Enoch to please give her some time. Enoch smiled and said he would be waiting until then. Letitia thanked him, and then Enoch bid her good night, saying, "Good night, Letitia." Hearing it from him, she felt happy and blushed out of embarrassment. When he left, she shouted his name several times. The scene then shifted to Leroy Manor, where Father Chaeundo was talking with Marquis Leroy. Father Chaeundo asked in shock, "What?" Letitia got expelled. He also stated that Letitia's power was not making people miserable, and if it were, then his household would have fallen into ruin. It wouldn't be prosperous as it is. Marquis Leroy responded that he had his own reasons for taking action against Letitia. Father Chaeundo shouted and asked what could be the reason for him to do such a thing to Letitia. Marquis Leroy replied that he would not allow himself, his wife, his other children, or his household to be ruined because of Letitia. Hearing this, Father Chaeundo was at a loss for words as he couldn't believe it. Marquis Leroy then explained what had happened with Diana and clarified that he didn't expel Letitia out of impulse. He stated that Letitia's conduct had led to rumors spreading that she brought misfortune and that she even socialized with the hopeless children of House Achilles. Father Chaeundo asked if Marquis Leroy was blaming all of it on Letitia. Marquess Leroy responded with a yes, stating that there was no one else to blame, and nothing bad had happened ever since Diana was born. He also expressed his belief that either Letitia's power was making people miserable, or it was because she was hanging out with the children of House Achilles. Father Chaeundo shared that Letitia's power wasn't making people miserable, he could swear on himself. Marquess Leroy, upon hearing this, grew tense and wondered about it. Suddenly, he heard some notices coming over that Irene had handed in her test paper. Marquess Leroy shouted and asked what all the fuss was about. It became evident that someone was informing Irene that unfortunately, she had been disqualified. Irene responded that it wasn't possible and that she would go and find it herself. The boy apologized, expressing his inability to help. Irene shouted that she had to pass the exam and was certain she had submitted the paper. So the boy asked Irene to go with him to the academy. Seeing this, Marquess Leroy wondered what was going on. Before he could think much, a servant came and informed that Lord Xavier had fallen off his horse and gotten injured. Shocked, Marquess Leroy asked to confirm the news and then ran towards Xavier to check on him. On the other hand, Father Chaeundo wondered why Xavier, who was very skilled at horse riding, fell and got injured. The Marchioness Leroy hurt her hand, and the second daughter also injured her wrist. It seemed that only bad things were happening in House Leroy, one after another. Suddenly, he was stunned as he pondered something and wondered when it all started. He became perplexed as he tried to pinpoint the day when Letitia got kicked out of the house. The next morning, Letitia pondered the moment she had shared with Enoch the previous night and what her expression had been like at that time. She recalled her blushing face and felt tension over it, wondering why she had blushed so intensely and if it felt different from when Rivian called her name. She continued to blush as she thought about those moments, feeling stunned and lost in deep contemplation about what was happening to her. Suddenly, Il and Ian returned. Letitia asked if they had returned the envelope to the person. Il replied with a no, explaining that they hadn't even met the person. Sadly, Il explained that they had gone to the place where she had bumped into the man, but they couldn't find him. Letitia responded reassuringly, expressing her confidence that Il would meet him next time, emphasizing the importance of the document. Il expressed her hopefulness as well. Then she mentioned that she was going to make tea and asked Ian if he would like to join her. However, Ian responded with a no, explaining that he had to go to his room. Observing Ian's somber demeanor, Letitia couldn't help but wonder if something was bothering him, as he didn't seem happy. Concerned for his well-being, she decided to go to his room and knocked on the door. Ian answered, looking surprised to see her, and asked what had brought her to his room. Letitia mentioned that she needed to talk and asked if he had a few minutes. Ian replied affirmatively. Letitia then noticed some books in Ian's room and inquired whether he was preparing for the Imperial official exam. Ian asked if she was asking about the books because it wasn't a big deal to him. Surprised by his response, Letitia asked if he wasn't interested in becoming an official. Ian explained that it wasn't because he was interested, but rather because he felt he should do something. He mentioned that unlike Enoch and Il, it was all he felt capable of doing. Ian then shared that sometimes he envied Il because she was so sure about what she wanted to do in her life. Hearing this, Letitia thought that Ian was just like her, as she also had similar thoughts in her childhood. Letitia then shared with Ian that Lady Il wasn't just doing something she was good at, she was doing something she liked. Ian apologized to her for not understanding what she wanted to say and asked her to clarify. Letitia explained that she hadn't yet discovered what she liked doing, but she suggested to Ian that they could figure it out together. Ian then pondered what he likes, and after a moment of thought, he became happy and told Letitia that he understood why Il liked her so much. Letitia became confused and asked Ian what he meant. Ian reassured her, suggesting they find out together, and thanked her for supporting him. Letitia felt happy and shared that she was also going to search for something she liked, something that reflected her, something she truly wanted. The scene then shifted to the day of the Imperial Night installation ceremony. Letitia stood in place as Il approached her and asked if she had slept well the night before. Letitia replied affirmatively and inquired about Il. Il admitted that she was so nervous that she couldn't sleep a wink. El then asked if Enoch hadn't arrived yet. Letitia shared her belief that Enoch would arrive in 2 or 3 minutes. El then admitted that she had forgotten to bring the envelope and asked Letitia if she could go and fetch Enoch for her. She promised to bring Ian on her way back. Letitia responded with a yes. She then headed towards Enoch's room and knocked on his door. Ian invited her in and apologized for struggling to fasten the button on his sleeves. Upon seeing Enoch in his attire, Letitia was stunned and fascinated by it. She couldn't help but wonder how well the dress suited Enoch. Seeing Enoch staring at her, Letitia sensed the need to change the topic. She mentioned that he had more buttons to fasten up and offered to help him. Enoch agreed, thankful for her assistance. While fastening the button, Letitia noticed that Enoch was still wearing the gold thread bracelet she had given him. She suggested to Enoch that he could take it off if he wanted. Confused, Enoch asked if she was referring to the bracelet and explained that everything had turned out well since he started wearing it, so he intended to keep it on all the time. Hearing this, Letitia felt touched and incredibly happy that Enoch wore the bracelet all the time. Despite this, she asked him once again if he shouldn't take it off. Enoch looked surprised and asked if she didn't want him to wear it. Letitia responded that it wasn't what he was thinking, she simply believed that the bracelet she gave him didn't suit him. Enoch fell silent for a moment and then confessed that he didn't want to take it off. Surprised, Letitia asked what he meant. Enoch explained that he wanted to show off, to boast that somebody cared about him. Letitia asked what he meant by that. Enoch smiled and asked if she didn't care about him. Letitia responded that she obviously cared about him. She wanted to say something more, but she couldn't and blushed very hard, seeing which Enoch smiled and asked if they should go to the ceremony now. The scene then shifted to the Imperial Night ceremony place where the announcer was telling that the title had been bestowed on the brave and just who had sworn in the name of God to sacrifice their lives to protect the nation and emperor, and so on. He gave a long lecture over it. There, every knight was taking the pledge, and behind them, Letitia was searching for Enoch. She asked El where Sir Enoch was. El showed her Enoch's standing place. They both then greeted hi to Enoch, and El tried to make Enoch look towards them. But when Enoch greeted hi back, his eyes weren't on her. El then looked carefully and got happy as Enoch was looking at Letitia. She thought to herself that she knew something was going on between Enoch and Letitia. El then started smiling and chuckling weirdly, which made Ian tense. On the other side, Rivian was very frustrated as he didn't like Enoch at all. How could Enoch be looking somewhere else during the inauguration ceremony? Rivian then wondered whether it's because Letitia didn't think of him as her fiancé anymore, and it was so annoying for him. Il then shared that she got tense as there were so many people around. Ian asked her to hold on a bit more as the ceremony was just... Letitia then saw the man Il got bumped off and asked Il to look at him, wondering if he wasn't the person she had bumped into the other day. Il apologized and asked her to show the person again. Letitia then pointed at the person again, and Il responded with a yes, then ran towards the person. She told Letitia that she would come back soon. Letitia agreed as she was waiting for her. While she went to talk with the man, Letitia here was wondering that ELA was so fast. Ian then laughed and asked if it was hectic whenever ELV was around them, wasn't it? Letitia responded that she thought ELA was cute rather than being hectic. The scene then shifted to some time later when the inauguration ceremony ended. Ian and Letitia were happy as it didn't take much time. Suddenly, to their surprise, Diana came there and asked Letitia whether she came to the ceremony to take revenge for being kicked out. Letitia looked at Diana, confused. Diana asked why she was at the ceremony, if not to make someone else miserable. Letitia, surprised, asked if Diana was telling her that she couldn't come to the installation ceremony. Diana shouted back, responding with a yes, insisting that Letitia should just go live in a remote place and stay out of their sight, for God's sake. Diana also asked if Letitia wanted to make Rivian unhappy, just like them. Letitia felt sad and didn't say anything. Suddenly, a voice came from somewhere asking Diana to stop. Diana looked back and it was Enoch. But Diana said that talking about bad luck, and the real bad luck came. Letitia tensed up to see Enoch there. Everyone else around started murmuring, wondering what was going on, if someone was fighting. Elael also came running towards them and asked what happened while she was away. Ian asked Enoch to go back as many people were watching them. Enoch was about to respond to Ian, but before that, Eli came and surprisingly asked why Enoch was there with Ian, as he had told them he had something to do after the installation ceremony, so didn't he need to go? Diana here was getting tense and wondering what was going on as they were all appearing one by one. Someone also asked Enoch to come with him. Letitia also told Enoch not to worry as Ian and Yalway were with her. Enoch agreed and asked them to wait for him as he would be back. When Enoch left, Diana got happy and started saying again that it was why everyone said that like attracts like, asking whether Letitia was joined at the hip with Enoch. El interrupted and told Diana that she was being too rude, and at least she should show some courtesy to her big sister. Diana, with a rude tone, asked who was her sister and why she considered Letitia as her sister when she only embarrassed her and did nothing. Ian then also shouted at Diana, telling her not to dare speak like that. Diana then pushed Ian away and told them she had no business with them, so they needed to move out of the way. El furiously got in between them as Diana's shameless behavior was unbearable and asked her to stop it. But Diana also pushed Il away, telling her to be quiet and get out of the way, causing her envelope to open up and all the pages to scatter on the ground. Letitia shouted and asked Diana what she was doing. On the other hand, Ian saved Yael from falling, but Yael was tense because her drawings fell on the ground. Diana then came close to the drawings and asked what those were on paper, if they were wish bracelets, whether they were going to make some jewelry. Diana then laughed and shared her thoughts, saying she thought it was childish and crude to use pink diamonds as decoration, and that the lousy pink diamond mine would go out of business soon. She even bet on it. Hearing this, Ayala asked in shock what Diana had just said. Diana then mentioned that it had been a while since minerals were found, hadn't it? She also explained that they were being found, but they weren't of good quality. Hearing this, everyone around started laughing. So Diana asked everyone to stop being so mean and imagine how worried they would be. She also cautioned them not to laugh too loud as they might hurt the feelings of the young lady, BLA. Letitia was wondering over the words childish and crude, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, she shouted Diana's name in anger. Seeing her like that, Diana looked at Letitia with a questioning face. Letitia furiously said she would make sure that Diana saw those childish and crude bracelets wherever she went. Diana asked, "What?" Letitia furiously told her that Diana would have to apologize when they succeeded, as she could swear that the business wouldn't go down. Thank you for watching our video. If you like our romance manhwa recaps, please consider subscribing to the channel. You can also watch a similar romance manhwa story by clicking on this video right here.